thank you. That was a nice introduction for me. I tell a few things about me. I'm senior partner at RKW. We are really big practice with 450 employees, majorly in Düsseldorf, but also in other parts of Germany. And there was much talk about BIM, and I will, in the end of my presentation, I also will talk about BIM, and I will talk about BIM in relation to fees, of course, because this is a topic today. I worked with the implementation of BIM at RKW, and that brought me into the field of chambers and something like that. So always organizing BIM on a larger level, not only on the level of the practice. Very interesting is the lowest line BIM Allianz. BIM Allianz is a consortium of now 70 practices, German practices, majorly German practices, and we are collaborating to create our own standards because of the lack of standards. So we just say we do it, and now they are slowly taken over even by federal organizations. So, but I do not talk about too much about BIM, otherwise we lose too much time. But in the end, it will come again with the fees. Yeah, who is an architect in Germany? It's quite simple. An architect are those one which are part of a chamber. You have to be in a chamber. But everyone can work as an architect. The only restriction is to only architects can make the documents for the building permission. That is the only restriction. It's more or less the signature in the end. So that's all. But at least this is important. This is for the chambers important. And so we set up something, it's called die Bastei, digitale bundesweite Auskunftsstelle der Architekten und Ingenieure. That means we put all the information from all the architects and the engineers in Germany together into one data bank, which can be touched by the officials, and they can check is the one who wants to have this permit, is he member of any chamber. So there are 31 chambers, one is missing, 31 chambers of Germany, they can do it. So those are the ones who can get a permit, and those are the ones who get the fees, of course. And you see, this is already something which is organized between architects and engineers, commonly. And the HOAI, which you know so very well, is of course also for engineers and architects. It's not only for architects. Yeah, the scope of work, to do it short, the architect more or less has to do everything. Everything, from the start to the end, everything which is necessary for the planning and the supervision of a building. Everything is his task. And of course, there are limited responsibility by the engineers for structure and plumbing and something like that. But the point is always, if there's no one responsible, in the end, the architect is responsible. But because that came up right now with BIM, he is not liable for the things other people do. There's a big difference. He has to coordinate this, but he's not liable. Liable is always the one who does something. And the architect does not have to find all the faults which are made by other people. Only the coordination is his task. Okay, the fees were regulated probably since hundreds of years, I don't know, but the really first thing in Germany was in 1950, and this had another name. It later became the HOAI, which you know so very well. And this was a binding price law until 22 for projects up to 20 million construction sum. And as I said, it is not only for the architects, but also for the engineer and for urban planning too. And then came a judgment by the European Court of Judgment, which demolished this situation. It is no more binding price law now. So, but it is still part of the market and is accepted in the market. because the scope of work, we will look more precisely on this later on. That is just what people are used to. In major, it is really good functioning, the scope of work. There are some points which we are right now trying to make it better in the collaboration between engineers and architects. There are some things which are not really good. We come to this later, but not too intensive because it's a very dedicated, very difficult thing. But one thing is, yes, if you think about fees for architects, you always have to think about the fees for other people, because the collaboration and the Schnittstelle, where the things come together, you have to deal with this. So, as I said, the topic for me today is only the regulation for architects. For interior architects, it's nearly the same. There are minor deviations. We do not talk about the urban planners, which have also the regulations in the HOAI, or for the engineers, as I said. So what we are talking about fees is this paragraph 34, which is for buildings. Yeah. I don't go too deep in HOAI because you know it. You know what is the basic service. But this small sentence is still important, also in relation to BIM. Well, you have to do everything what is necessary for the planning of the building, of course. And meant is by this normal building, whatever is a normal building, I don't know. But the more complicated a building is, the more engineers are taking part on it. And they do not take away your fee. They come additional to it, because it is respected that it is different if you make it just a normal housing project with windows, you just order the windows and everything is fine. But if you make a very complicated facade, you will have to have someone else who is supporting you with this planning. You will not be able to make a very complicated facade. Then you get another engineer for that. And what is also always a quite difficult thing is to have the separation, what do the planners do and what do the firms do in order of planning. Because if you have a complicated facade, of course you get those construction plans from the firms, which are very detailed. And of course, as an architect, you are not obliged to do those, but you are obliged to check them. So that's a duty. I describe that because we can't talk about fees if we don't talk about what you have to do for it. And it's quite a lot in Germany. I don't know if it's here. Maybe it's the same. You have to think about that yourself. So there are 9 phases. I think you know them, so we can skip that more or less. It is the basic determination where you do not plan, but it's only finding out what is necessary for your planning. Then you have a preliminary design, a final design, roughly 1 to 100, with more details, of course, some details, extra details. And this is already, and you see the percentage of fee. So if you add all the points in the last column, that will be 100 in the end. So we'll see it put together a little more easy to understand. You get not much for the approval planning. Why? That is not the planning. The planning was already in 3. This is only calculating, putting it together. That's why it is so not much. Then the execution planning, the tender documents, the tender process, and the supervision. And in the end, for a time of maybe 5 years, it is everything was not right with the building to repair the deficits. So, and that's why I went through it quite fast. That's more interesting. So you get about 1/4 of the total sum, until to the point you have the building permit. So this is the whole design to make it beautiful, to make it functional, and to make it approvable. So, and you get about 40% for the whole process to find a firm and to supervise this firm until to the end. And of course, to give them, sorry, not to supervise, supervision is later. No, to make the documents they need for their building. And you get about 1/3 of the total sum to be on site and make control. If you do so, because that will be here the very same, not always the same company does the whole process through, and not always those are architects in the sense of the chamber. For example, if you have a general contractor, of course, many parts of this number 8 will go to the general contractor, and they will do it on their own. I had it before, you see it here. That might be, this is a sort of ideal process, which in regular, most times is not as ideal as written here. You see, so you get the 32% if you have many firms, then you get, you do it, the coordination as an architect, then you get really the 32%. But if you have a general contractor and he does the most of this work, so you get only 5 to 15% for site supervision, which is more if everything is beautiful, let's say, and you do not have the technical responsibility. That's always the question. Do you have the technical responsibility or do you not have the technical responsibility? So this can be less than 100% what you get. And now is, of course, the question, how many euros are 100%? And that is, of course, related to the chargeable construction sum. And to this belongs everything in the building as long as it belongs to the building. It is also the technical equipment is also part of it as long as it belongs to the building, not the production, what the firm does, of course not. But this is, if it's more than 25%, so it's lowered. What is more than 25% of the other costs will be added only half. So it's reduced, but it is part of the chargeable construction sum. In case you have an existing building, of course, you have a lower construction sum because there is already something. But this something, as long as you have to deal with it, and that is most all the walls and something you have to deal with it, you get a, let's say, virtual sum for this, so that the price is, the chargeable sum is then higher than the real sum, because the existing building has a value which is incorporated in the calculation of the fee. So we have those zones. You are familiar with this. Those are 5 zones. I have only 3 to make it a bit more clearly. And you'll see, of course, zone 1 is a barn or something very simple. Zone 5 is the hospital. Most buildings are in the central region housing, and they can be in this zone. They can on the higher side or on the lower side. That you can change also that. And of course, it is digressive. You see the sums, the 100% fee sum for 1 million euros. Chargeable construction sum, and for 20 millions. And you see that the difference between zone 1 and zone 5 is about twice. You get for the barn, you get half the, for every euro construction sum, you get about half the sum for the hospital. And of course, depending on the cost, which is digressive, then it goes down, let's say in the middle, from 13% to 9%. And to be honest, that makes that small projects are not very attractive. because you get 20 times more fee for 20 millions, and you have only to skip from this 20 only 1/3 or something. So you get, let's say, 13 times as much work. But a 20 million project is not 13 times as much work as a 1 million project. So the smaller projects are no good idea for architects. So it's better to have bigger projects. Well, that's not very new for you. But it is systematically in the fee calculation, which is not really fair for the small projects. So if it is conversion, you get additionally to this already higher chargeable construction sum, you get even on this a surcharge up to 33%. From 0 to 33, it's only a question of negotiation. So that was the regular service. And then additional to that, there's a lot of additional services which you can provide. And when I said everything is, you have to, for the regular service, you have to do everything what is necessary for the construction, it's not really right. Because if you have special documents which are needed, maybe for environmental things or disabled people or something, you have kind of these things. They are always extra charged, even if they are necessary for the process of permission. And much more interesting, especially in the context of BIM, we come to that, are other things, so as information which is required for the facility management later on or something, or special ideas of the client about the calculations, cost calculations you have, normal cost calculations, but you can do it as you want to do. In all cases, when the client grabs into the freedom how you do things, that can be really costly for you because you have to change your systems in the office. And so that is the right to have special services and special costs and special fees for this. All this kind of special fees have to be commissioned individually, and there's no guideline for it. The HOAI doesn't say anything about this. Okay, as you see, the HOAI is quite old, and it was revised after the judgment. That means judgment was in 2020, the last revision was in 2021. That means we revised something which is no more binding. That means we find it important, obviously, and that's the case, as I said. And now this process, which I want to talk about now in the end, is HOAI 22X. The X means there should be a new HOAI in the 2020s, and if you see the last line, it should be in 2025. Why in 2025? That's the end of our election period of the Bundestag, and we want to have it in this election period. And the HOAI is not a chamber regulation as yours are, but it is a state law. It is really a state law, which is, of course, something completely different. But the stakeholders in the construction industry, of course, take part in this process of developing a new, or not a new one, but a revised HOAI. And on the side of the architects and the engineers, that is the AHO, AHO, Commission for Fees for Architects and Engineers. It's a group of about 100 people right now, and I'm one of them, which think about revising the HOAI to make it better and especially more modern. We will talk about BIM in this context. I'm in one of these under committees which are dealing with the BIM factors about in the HOAI. That's with a few other people. That's my task in this job, and that is on the way. the two ministries, it is the building ministry and the Ministry for Economic. That's really one which will bring out this new HOAI. They have already received documents from us, and it's a kind of lobby work and something like that. And very important, there will be two Gutachten. What is Gutachten? Oh, yeah.
Expert opinions.
Expert opinions, exactly. There will be two expert opinions. One is already commissioned, and they will have a look on the task, scope of work. And after this is finished, there will be another expert opinion, which is dealing with the fees for this. So first the scope of work and then the fees. And that's the reason why this whole process is so long. That's the reason why it will take until 2025. This is because of these expert opinions. Nice word, yeah. Yeah, what are we doing? Yes, creation of revised service description. If we no, we don't have. If we had the time, I would like to talk about the relation between the work of architect and the engineers, because this is very difficult, and we want to change some things which will lead, hopefully, to a better collaboration, especially in phase 3, the final design. We will do something about BIM, but there are extra folios for, so we will go there in a few minutes. Yes, and we want, in the moment the discussion is that we probably will give away these fee zones 1 to 5, and we'll replace it by a point-based calculation system. I have a folio for that, which will make it maybe more precisely and maybe more objective than it's now, because the fee zones in somehow are always point of discussion. So, yeah, that is this point-based system. It is not really the system. It's only, you see in the center, it will lead to a number of points, which more or less are related to the former fee zones, and will have in view all the things which are written there. And there are also a number of functional areas, design requirements, constructive requirements, technical things, fit-out requirements. And it's very, very, very small and down, but it's more important. Sustainability, of course, is one of those things which our profession has to deal much more with it. And we love to do it, and we find it very interesting and important for our world to do so, but we want to have it paid. And so we will not do it for free. So, so we have to incorporate it into the HOAI. And you see on the left-hand side, BIM planning method when commissioned. So this will also be part of this, how difficult is a project. Let's say, how difficult is a project. So, and now we come indeed to the BIM itself according to the fee. So, as you saw, it is part of this point-based system. So, if BIM is commissioned, you shall get more money for that only by making BIM, whatever BIM is. There are many architects, not few in Germany, which are making BIM, and they say, we do not want to have this. We do not want to make BIM more expensive than regular planning, because we want it to be introduced into the market. And if it costs extra money, the risk is too high that it will not be commissioned. So this discussion is on the way. But on the other hand, we are making BIM. We say there's a reason to have more money for that, and the main reason is the double work. The double work means we are making our models and coordinating the models, everything's fine, but in the end, we still have to make plans. And that is a double work. And making plans is not so few work. It's quite a lot of work to make quite good plans from these BIM models. And that is the reason why also I think a kind of additional fee should be for BIM because of the double work. But beside that, and that shouldn't be too much, beside that, this basic service includes, again, all what is needed for your planning task. You have to provide, if you do it by BIM or do it by plans, it doesn't matter. So in the end, you have to do it, and it is part of the basic service. But only if you do it in the way you want to do it. That is in BIM more important than in normal, regular planning, because if your client very precisely gives you what software you have to use, what data you have to deliver, when, why, whatever, that can make a real bunch of work. That can really be very much work. So it has to be clear for the clients. They get BIM only for nearly free if they let us do it as we want to do it. And then it's fine. But otherwise, they have to pay the extras. Part of the basic service is also the coordination between plumbing and static structure and all this kind, because that always was our job, and coordination is, of course, a basic thing for us and makes us important even in the BIM process. But there's always parts of the coordination, because in a BIM coordination is always a part which is more technical, where you have to do with data and something like that, the data of other people and something like that, or you have to check if they fit to the execution plan or something like that. And this is not architects' work for free. So this is, again, something which brings some additional fee into this coordination. That's the idea we have about BIM in the HOAI. Yeah, basic BIM service will be described more closely. Also, das heißt, what I tell you in brief must be quite good, argumented and written and something like that, so that you can really use it. Yes, and of course BIM may be the reason for numerous special services as build model and whatever people want to for their facility management, or other engineers want to have something in your model that they can work with it more easy, and then they of course have to pay for this. There's something written about that. It is BIM für Architekten. This is in German. Leistungsbild, Vertrag, Vergütung. It is in BIM age is already quite old, from 2017. I'm one of the co-authors. And in general, it says what I said now. So that BIM can be part of the HOAI and will be part of our planning structure. And because the people in Luxembourg, they liked it, and they asked if they may translate it into French, and we said, okay, translate it into French, and you can get it in French if you prefer French, but it's not in English, it's only in German and French. Yeah, ready for the future, is this ready for the future? I think if we get the more modern things like sustainability and BIM into it, then it will be ready for the future. But I think, because I thought maybe it's an idea, it's not an idea of AHO, but I heard other countries think like that. One of the difficulties in the HOAI is you're always discussing, when you're discussing fees, you are discussing about two things. One thing is the construction cost, and the other thing is the difficulty. But both mean the same. Higher construction costs only mean the building is bigger and more difficult. So why don't do it in one? One could think about a fee calculation which only has square meters of the building. Scale, that means a big building is has lower fees per square meter. In total, more, of course, but per square meter, the digression you can put into. You have to have a factor for the difficulty, simple building, not simple, difficult building. And you have to put an index into it because prices are going up. And we have the index automatically because we have the building price, construction prices go up, our fees go with it. But if you have it, want to have it more, more easy and more neutral in a way, that could be an idea to think. So if you have the data, that's as Mima said, they want to do something like that, but they don't have the data. So that's the question. Okay, yes, that was an idea. In the end, it is not an idea in Germany. Also, we are not on this way, but because we are discussing, I thought just show it to you. Thank you.